That's a natural part of who we are as humans, isn't it? To try and solve problems immediately, and we come straight in with a solution. We think, yeah, this is how you do it.
We all love fixing problems, but the real work is in knowing exactly what needs fixing first.
I probably came in with a propensity to already have a solution in mind, and probably be pretty gung-ho in terms of what I wanted to do.
We see it every day. You go into meetings with corporates and straight away they've got the solution in mind, but they're not thinking globally.
The agritech sector in Aotearoa New Zealand is ripe with opportunities for innovation. But jumping to solutions without working through the real problems with a wider group of stakeholders could mean we stay in the box as a commodities-producing market.
As industry, we've got to think not just within the agri-industry, but all industry. You've got to start thinking about what's the framework thinking mindset that we can deliver in order to create solutions.
Moment, the environment, compliance, those are very big challenges that are driving a need to innovate. There's a real groundswell of that going on in those industries at the moment, and that's very complementary to a Māori worldview in terms of, looking after the whenua and thinking bigger picture in terms of what we're doing.
In this episode of the Impact series, Tim chats with Master of Technological Futures graduates Andrew Willougby and Damon Stewart, who both started with a firm focus on solutions for the agricultural sector. What they ended with was a broader view that the ingredients to creating successful solutions come from holistic thinking and a deep understanding of the problem.
Well, Korua, welcome to the Impact Series podcast. And today I'm joined by Andrew Willougby and Damon Stewart, who have been recently exploring agritech in New Zealand and the challenges which we face in this ever evolving industry. We're going to talk about the way that their master's journey led them to different directions in their path on trying to solve some of the moving parts and the headwinds that we face. So looking at the bigger picture to begin with, Damon, I know you've had experience in this area for quite a while. Can you tell us about some of the areas which have developed recently in agritech?
Kia ora, Tim. What comes to mind for me, sitting in an office at a telco on the internet is, the capability around IoT and connecting, the agritech environment, increasing the capability to analyze data and capture new data sets, and just the ability to monitor an agricultural environment in real time is probably the hot topic at the moment in terms of new developments.
The way that all the areas are connected and the use of the data is a really big part of the process. I remember talking to our students on the DCL program maybe 8 years ago or even longer about farmers who are using drones to check on stock and those sorts of things. So are there any other sort of innovative bits of technology that are being used in this agri-tech area?
Let me think. Just the basics of internet connection and being able to monitor, weather remotely. A good one is, frost protection systems protecting crops. You can run those applications from anywhere, switch on, switch off, monitor the performance of those systems. That's a particularly useful one in the kiwifruit industry, which I've had quite a bit of experience with.
And how about you, Andrew, in your sort of exploration of this area, what sorts of technology have you come across more recently that have been helpful in this area?
I can only really lean on the project that focused on kind of using AI technology in order to detect images of birds. I operate as in IT as a Scrum Master and Project Manager, so completely removed. So for me to get into this whole agri subject was a complete foreign journey for me, and a great journey. I learned a lot, but a complete foreign journey. So I really only kind of touched the outer circle of, the agritech, domain.
I mean, that can often be a real advantage, though, approaching a topic or an area with beginner's eyes and a beginner's mindset. You often see those gaps in the market, or those challenges that have been repeating themselves for years and years and years. You suddenly see a solution because you're thinking in a different way. So what were the solutions or the focus of your master's project that you looked into?
Sure. So my focus was really about understanding how I could reduce noise pollution on a kiwi fruit orchard, opposing the current gas cannon. So the gas cannon fires off, and it fires off to scare the birds away during the budding season. And the reason why they scare the birds away is because birds can cause damage to the crop and therefore reduce the yield to the grower. So if you think about a gas cannon goes off, say from dawn till dusk between September till November, which is a 3-month period, and you live next to an orchard, that's high noise pollution. And imagine if you've got a young baby, trying to settle the baby at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. There's no way you can do that. So my alternative was to sort of look at ways through AI and machine vision and understand how it could detect a bird in flight. So this is object detection, how it could detect a bird in flight and then release some sort of signal or sound that would scare the bird away from landing on the crop and damaging, and therefore, keeping up the yield, I guess. So that was my primary focus. I did stumble. I won't. I won't ignore that. I did stumble a couple of times, and I still am kind of progressing through that journey. So I did to try and work through object detection, and the model that I was using wasn't quite accurate enough. So then I had to sort of switch and move into background subtraction, which is very different. So background subtraction is basically, it's binary 0, 1. And so it looks at what's in the foreground, and anything in the foreground, it detects it as movement. So really that kind of takes away it's not detecting the actual thing that you want it to detect, it's detecting all movement. So really what you'd have to do there is it's about placement of the camera, which is kind of at that flight of bird coming in, and it would have to be on the shelter belt, which is the shelter belt is obviously protects the kiwi fruits from the wind. So that's where I was exploring, through my master's journey about the placement and what we could do with background subtraction. But I do want to pull back and then really focus on object detection, but not on static images of birds, but more in-flight birds, so the movement of birds, so capturing the video images and then releasing the sound based on that.
And did you find that had been used anywhere else? Were you able to transfer ideas from different industries?
Sure.
Or different lines?
From the research that I had done, there's a couple of organizations that were exploring it, but no one has done it. There are devices out there that do release out kind of predatory sounds, but they'll just go off whenever, just like the gas cannon. It's just a set basis, and it's on a timer, and it just goes off. Whereas mine's very much focused on detection, and then through that object detection, then sound out the blast or sound out the sound. So to your question, no, there was nothing that I could find out there that was similar that kind of combined the two together.
Yeah, and where did it end up going? I mean, is it something that's a viable product now? Is it something which people can use or understand more about?
Sure. So I built a prototype, and in that prototype, it was using background subtraction. So I really want to shift it up a gear and move into the object detection using a model of birds in flight. So what I'm looking to do next is get some funding, get someone to develop the model for me, and then I can work through how can I autonomously operate the device in an orchard where the grower doesn't need to sort of go out to. And what I mean by that is it's self-powered. So what would I do for self-powered? I use maybe some solar panels and maybe a small wind turbine connected to a battery, which keeps the charge up of the small computer. And then that computer, which runs the program, is constantly looking for to birds. And there's some really cool tech out there at the moment. So the biggest issue for me is not the technology; it's actually the program that runs on the hardware. So there's the hardware it's coming along leaps and bounds. So I'll be able to sort of solve the autonomous problem straight away. It's just getting that model developed, which I'm slowly working through at the moment. But having a full-time job as well as trying to do that has been problematic, but not to say impossible.
Yeah, that's often the way. We often have to wait for the technology to catch up with our ideas, don't we, to put them in there. And I know, Damon, in your solution to your challenge, the technology was kind of there, but it was just the way that you implemented it, which was innovative. Can you tell us a bit more about what you did with your solution? And I guess to begin with, what was the challenge that you were trying to face?
So initially, unlike Andrew not being from the ag sector, I probably came in with a propensity to already have a solution in mind and, probably be pretty gung-ho in terms of what I wanted to do. And I was really tripped up in that space because initially I wanted to look at, a lot like a dairy herd where the farmer might treat each individual animal as an individual asset and look at data on all of those animals. I was looking at treating an orchard in a similar fashion. So thinking about each individual plant and being able to, build a virtual mirror of an orchard utilizing software, and then looking at analyzing those plants as individual assets making up a production block. Just thinking about some of the other hot technologies in agritech at the moment, I was looking at utilizing, computer vision, LiDAR, GPS, AI, etc. But what that created immense complexity, and what really stumped my idea was how you overcome communication under a vegetative canopy. Because invariably a thick vegetative flat canopy creates limitations in terms of the capability of those technologies. So thankfully, with the support of TFL and our tutors and teachers and our support network, they helped me understand a process to move back away from being so focused on just a solution as I came into my master's. And I was able to utilize the teachings around kaupapa Māori and also a lot of the frameworks like the double diamond or design thinking to help me shift my focus and really stay with the problem. And then my key area of interest became clear to me that there was a real opportunity in the kiwi fruit industry to try and overcome some of the challenges around the perceptions of labour, how the industry engages with the workforce and utilises the workforce. So really trying to enhance a sense of community or whanaungatanga and really building skills and capabilities, so maramatanga, in that community. And how I proposed to do that in my master's was to try and create a platform off of existing technologies, put that in the hands of both the growers or employers and the employees, to try and remove barriers in terms of communication, utilising or optimising the available workforce, and really fostering a sense of care, and community in the industry. And I felt that was going to give the industry a unique opportunity to boost productivity and attract people to the industry, I guess.
So you shifted from looking at the actual physical products and the communication between, the crop or the plants to the people that underpin that. And part of that was through adopting some values that were based on kaupapa Māori frameworks and designs. How did you go about, communicating with the local community about whanaungatanga and understanding the building of those relationships? What was the process that you went through there?
So the key thing for me, I guess, was, from our learnings very early on in the Masters, it became very apparent to me the importance of kaupapa Māori and developing a Māori worldview, and also, really utilising frameworks that are out there and freely available to apply to research or to try to overcome a problem of value, So once I could identify those couple of things, I then tried to apply them in my own research. And one thing I did in particular was I tried to immerse myself in a kaupapa Māori environment. So how I did that specifically was I engaged with a local not-for-profit, so Kai Rotorua. A big thanks to them for their support through my research. Practically what I did with them is I've just volunteered for a few of their orchard days. So they run an organic orchard, and I was able to turn up and I guess just learn by doing in that environment, So that was really cool. I actually took a group of my colleagues to one of those days as well. And then also I reached out and engaged with the head of that organisation, and he actually assisted me and mentored me throughout my research. And so that was just an amazing opportunity for me, and I'm deeply indebted to him for that energy that he provided me.
And amazing authentic experiences as well. There are so many opportunities that we often miss by not just jumping into them. So it's great to see how that shaped your project and the next steps in your work. Understanding the ethical challenges of working in agriculture in New Zealand and also incorporating technology within that, what sort of barriers and challenges did you come across, either of you, around the ethics of your projects?
Scenarios that come to mind at the moment are, the environment, compliance. Those are very big challenges that are driving a need to innovate. If you think about innovation and adversity, and you think about all these small business owners that own, well, some of them are not small, they're medium-sized, but they've got a lot at stake. They're managing a complex environment, and then farmers or orchardists are also having to boost their capability around compliance, record keeping, really starting to think about the environment. There's a real groundswell of that going on in those industries at the moment, and that's very complementary to a Māori worldview in terms of, looking after the whenua and thinking bigger picture in terms of what we're doing. So those couple of examples are really driving the need for adoption in terms of technology and just trying to simplify and support those growers and farmers to get good outcomes,
Yeah, I agree with you, Damon. I guess for me, ethically, my main focus was not to hurt birds and to hurt kind of anything in the surrounding area by the noise that I was creating as a sound. But I guess, just picking up on the kaupapa, the pono tika and araha, for me, it was really important, building my relationships or the whanaungatanga through sort of working with the growers and also working with some of the community in the surrounding area who are neighbours of orchards. And then pai hiku, which is to combine and cooperate and join together. So that was really important for me, that I was able to associate what I was trying to deliver back to the community as well as the grower. So trying to make benefits on sort of both points. And just if while it's still fresh in my head, there was something that Damon mentioned just really about sort of moving you to that sort of framework thinking or that framework view, because, you know, he came in with a solution to a problem. And so did I. I came in with a solution to a problem as well. But, you know, that's a kind of a solution thinking mindset. And what TFL, you know, the Mind Lab really do well at is it's challenging you, always challenging you around that framework thinking. Okay, have you thought about this, and have you put it into, say, the double diamond or the decision thinking, as Damon's mentioned? And they really kept on pushing you back to that. So you could come in with a solution, but what's the problem? What's the problem you're trying to resolve? And then really going back to the problem every time, and then slowly moving forward. And lo and behold, your solutions change, right? And that's a natural kind of, you know, through osmosis, it did change for both of us. So yeah, that was, I guess, for me, a real benefit of doing the masters, because it taught me some good frameworks, but B, it sort of gave me the discipline to sort of go into, you know, don't have that solution thinking mindset. And we see it every day. You know, you go into meetings with corporates and straight away they've got the solution in mind and they want it for them, and that's it. But they're not thinking globally. They're not thinking about the impact of, you know, another department within the business. All they're thinking about is themselves, and that's all they care about, right? So we've, you know, as industry, we've got to think not just within the agri industry, but all industry. You've got to start thinking about what's the framework thinking mindset that we can deliver in order to create solutions.
Yeah, it's a natural part of who we are as humans, isn't it, to try and solve problems immediately, and we come straight in with a solution. We think, yeah, this is how you do it, but often that's from that individual perspective, where, like you were talking about, Damon, there needs to be more kotahitanga, togetherness as one, and a wider perspective. So yeah, it's great to see both, you know, both of your projects came through those concepts, through those authentic and real world experiences. So that's wonderful to hear about. I mean, I'd really like to know, sort of from an overview perspective, what was the final outcome in your project, Damon? What did you end up creating? What, you know, can you explain it to us in a couple of sentences what it was?
Yeah, so very simple. I just built a platform prototype, and I engaged with a local developer who I met riding in the forest one day, and he said he was really keen to help me with my prototype. So that's sitting on a server live now. So in terms of next steps, it's really easy for me to reinvigorate. And, you know, we just thought about applying, you know, those, I guess, those key findings in terms of overcoming the problems that were of most value in the areas that I'd uncovered, melding that with a Māori worldview, you know, and underpinning it with kaupapa Māori values. And then, you know, just trying to build something that we could put in the hands of growers and employees to actually, I guess, initiate a more authentic, productive engagement between the people that needed the mahi done and the people that were doing the mahi, you know. So, you know, my holding brand was actually Mahi Tahi, a Kiwi community. So that was sort of the shape of my final prototype in my master's.
And if you're an orchard owner, how would you use the tool? What would your interactions with the tool be?
So, you know, you would be able to obviously list your requirements on there, engage with the available workforce. You know, the smarts that were sitting behind that, you know, would be things like geolocation. So, you know, there was a good overview of, in terms of what capabilities and what workforce were in the area at any given time. The idea was, you know, that we really fostered whanaungatanga, you know, and we worked as a community together to help each other, both as growers and as employees. And, you know, the vision the vision to build on that was really to build something that we could then bolt on, skill development. So believe it or not, there's no industry training framework in the kiwifruit industry. So, I felt there was a huge opportunity there to really drive that skill development. Last year, the Productivity Commission released their report, basically saying that primary industry were terribly unproductive, and that we needed to get more productive. So, just thinking about ways of really working to try to achieve that outcome. So that was one example of that, bolting on that learning framework.
Yeah, and that just sort of leads us sort of naturally to talk about where it's all going next for both of you on this journey. How about you, Andrew? Where are you at now, and where's it going?
Well, yeah, thanks, Tim. Funnily enough, I had a meeting with Zespri, who, if you don't know, they are the sort of big conglomerate for kiwi fruits industry in New Zealand, and they contacted me. They've got a kind of innovation hub, and they heard my project being mentioned through a few growers, and so I presented to them, and it's not that they wouldn't be providing any funding. It's more just around maybe providing a host or an orchard of where I could do my testing on, and they would then sort of cover any costs if there was any damage to crops, etc. So that's good. And then next steps are to start to build the model, and then start to bring in some tech, and then put it all together, and then do some quite intense testing. And that's the key. As I found with my masters, you've really got to do the mahi and the testing in order to ensure that the product will work in the field. And yeah, there was a lot done from me out in the lawn, and just putting bread seed down, and bread and things like that down, just to sort of attract the birds, and then to get them to fly away. So yeah, that's the next steps. Put a bit of a budget together, sort of work through what I need and how I can do it. So put on the old project management hat, and then sort of move from there. So I was going to give myself 6 months off. That time's expired now. So now it's time I pull my finger out and concentrate on something, because I do believe that it is a device and tool that can be well used, not just within the kiwi fruit domain, but also in the sort of wider agri and arable crop. So yeah, that's a kind of next move for me.
Awesome. Did you find you had to move houses quite a bit in situations because you found that the birds got used to your systems and were consistently getting scared away? Did you have to try different locations?
Yeah, I find if you put plenty of bread down, they'll keep coming back.
Yeah. And how about you, Damon? What's going on for you now? Where are you heading to?
I'm in a great position, Tim, in that I've recently left the industry in terms of being a grower. So I'm sort of just 1 month into that and taking stock of what my options are. I think the best thing about my current scenario is what I learned in the masters in terms of a values-based approach to things, and also applying frameworks. And Andrew just mentioned that his solution has applications in other environments, and those key learnings for me can be applied anywhere, both personally or professionally. And I think they create a great measuring stick in terms of looking at things objectively, as I look at the future, whatever that may be. In terms of my particular solution, it is on ice, but it's sitting on the server. It's alive there. Its heart's still beating. And there are opportunities to re-engage and re-implement, and the first steps in that space would be really engaging stakeholders, around perhaps some sort of joint venture approach to applying what I believe is an important opportunity in terms of, the ethical approach to how we treat our workforce and develop our workforce, whatever industry we're in,
So both of you studied on the master's course together, but you knew each other before you started the program, is that right?
Yeah, we sure did. So Damon is married to a very good friend of mine who I had the privilege of going to primary school with. And in fact, we're born on the same day. So I kind of regard her as my sister, really. Yeah, that's so when, obviously Damon and Heather got married and I got married. So we went to each other's weddings. And so we've had that kind of that long-term relationship. And then Damon mentioned to me that he was looking to do, this master's program. And I was really intrigued because it was something that I had wanted to really, think about in terms of creating more learning. And yeah, so I guess we all the stars align and we managed to sort of, do the masters together and work on it together. Yeah, so maybe Damon can add in a little bit more to that, probably a bit more elegantly edit that stuff.
Yeah, so the beautiful opportunity for us at TFL was we're good friends. I was able to stay with Willow, in Auckland because I'm out of town. So that was fantastic as well. And we really were able to lean on each other. So, we could interact multiple times a day throughout our masters, especially when there was deadlines coming up, And for anybody considering undertaking this course, I would really encourage them to build those networks, within their cohort or even outside of, because it truly is very useful in terms of just encouraging each other and also acting as a sounding board, So in that regard, we're incredibly fortunate. Yeah.
I mean, I second that. I think it's really important to try and form a buddy if you are doing the masters, to have someone that you can trust, that you can lean on, and that can keep you honest as well. And the number of times that I called Damon nearly in tears, and he kind of just helped me through things and explained it, and I was able to sort of to move on. So there's a real benefit in that. Having that relationship. So I was blessed to have done it with Damon.
And just being open as a whole, throughout the process. So, as we alluded to, we both had preconceived ideas about what we're up to when we came in. And TFL do an amazing job of structuring things to break it down so you don't get overwhelmed, you don't get too far ahead. And they're coming in all the time with challenging you and giving you feedback. And if you're open to your buddy or your support network or, your mentor, who I'm really appreciative to as well throughout the process, then, as long as you don't give up and you listen to the feedback and you try and make those adjustments, it's your possibility of a strong outcome is really high, and I just want to reinforce that as well. Yeah.
Many people who are in positions, as both of you are, in sort of innovating a space and trying to disrupt an industry, often have feelings of self-doubt and imposter syndrome and negative self-talk. Did you find you were sort of experience those feelings and emotions? And if you did, how did you combat those? How did you get over those?
All the time. We were doing our masters with people that were in serious positions within, business, and I felt like a complete imposter the whole time. Mm-hmm. And Damon and I, we were like, we'd shake our heads at times, like these guys are amazing. Who we've got the privilege of doing our masters with these amazing, beautiful people. What are we doing here, man? What are we doing here? But to Damon's point, we put on the mahi, we listened, we took the feedback. The feedback wasn't always the greatest at the time, but you've got to take it with an open mind. And once you've taken it with an open mind, digested it, taken it away, you look at it again, you refocus, and you get back into it.
Yeah.
Anything to add there?
Adding to that, Andrew, you know, self-loathing is incredibly motivating, right? So yes, as Andrew alluded to, you know, the imposter syndrome was alive and well. But, you know, to TFL's credit, they coached us around that too. You know, one really interesting anecdote that I made throughout the course on numerous occasions was, you know, when you think about things like people's life experiences in your cohort, the groundswell of diversity in the corporate and research space now, the real position of privilege that Andrew and I come from, that created a real reflective thing for us as well in terms of, okay, this is what we can bring to the table, and these are our experiences, and should we or shouldn't we be here? But also just being open to all those other perspectives and what we could garner from, you know, guest speakers or our own cohort or our mentors, you know, was a big help in terms of overcoming the self-doubt and that self-talk, I guess, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I have to really thank not just Damon, but also my advisor for just reminding me all the time just to keep focus and keep going. And that was so encouraging. And he, you know, he was like, Rich was always saying, you've got this, you know, you've got to do it. You know what you've got to do. Just keep focusing on it. Give me some good direction, set it, and then I'd go for it. So, you know, after that, you kind of start to get a bit more confidence in your ability and your assignment writing, and then your production of output. So, yeah, it was an awesome journey, a long one, I felt, but it was amazing.
That's brilliant. Yeah, it does seem like it will never end, does it? When you're on that journey of trying to improve something, it's just like, and there's another turn in the road, something's gone wrong, and you know, there's always something which doesn't necessarily work out the best. So, if you were going to give one bit of advice to people who are trying to create a better future and do things in a more effective way, what would it be?
From a research and validation perspective, really staying with the problem. So building a level of comfort that if you really work hard in the research space and validate that problem, then there will be a very natural process in terms of moving into looking at ways that you can then overcome that problem. So from a sort of framework research perspective, you know, just, you know, even if you're getting really far down the track in terms of the timeframes, or your, you know, things are dragging on, I think still being with the problem is okay. And then coupled with that, you know, really trying to be open to feedback, because, you know, in terms of research or study environment, if you are getting feedback that things need to change from your advisor, then they're probably right. And if you can be open to that and address that, your probability of success will go through the roof. And then, you know, there's always the temptation to defer, you know, and not meet your deadlines. But, you know, if you couple those first couple of things with trying to make the deadline and not giving up, you might be pleasantly surprised and be looking back at, you know, that time when you were studying, or that time when you were trying to build an innovative solution for something, you know. So those are probably my key takeouts. Yeah.
That's brilliant. Yeah. And throughout the conversation today, you know, there's been so many good tips, you know, and pieces of direction which can support people who are on similar journeys to you. So Ngā nui kia koroa, I've really enjoyed talking to you both, and you know, the themes coming through are around, you know, the use of frameworks authentically and completely immersing yourself in the challenge, in the problem, you know, finding support around you, whoever that might be, whether it's the person that's delivering your groceries, get them to come around more often, or your buddy, or the people that you're working with and the wider whānau around you. It's been really important to hear about those stories and where they're going. If anyone would like to talk more to Damon and Andrew about their journey that they've been on and things that they've learned, as well as any of the technology or the solutions that they've been coming up with recently, we'll leave the description or their contact details in the description below, and feel free to catch up with them at any time. Lovely gentlemen, enjoyed talking to you both, and yeah, we'll hopefully speak to you soon at another stage and see where you are down the track. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Tim. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. This podcast is really good and a real privilege.
Yeah, and likewise, Tim, ngā mihi. Thank you very much.
Kia ora.